The grand ballroom of White Oak's mansion was so quiet, you could hear the clock ticking. Expensive shoes tapped the floor, silk dresses swished, and all eyes turned toward one girl. 16-year-old Amora Brooks stood near the center, her fingers gripping the sides of her faded dress. Around her were wealthy people in shiny clothes, glaring and whispering. "Why is she even here?" Someone muttered just loud enough for her to hear. Amora's cheeks burned, but she kept her head up. She didn't understand why she had been invited. She hadn't known Reginald Whitmore III very well. She'd only met him once when she was little. But something deep inside told her this moment was important. These people thought she didn't belong, but they didn't know what was coming. In less than an hour, every single person in that fancy room would realize the truth. The joke wasn't on Amora, it was on them. Amora had always lived in the shadows of the Whitmore family. Her mom, Lillian, worked as a maid in the mansion until she passed away when Amora was just 12. After that, everything changed. Amora was moved from one foster home to another, each time starting over, each time feeling more alone. She grew up hearing stories about the Whitmores, how rich they were, how powerful, how cold. They had everything, and people like her had nothing. Still, she remembered one moment that never left her. When she was 6, Reginald Whitmore III saw her reading a book in the mansion library. He crouched down, smiled, and placed a peppermint candy in her hand. "You're smarter than all of them," he whispered. Back then, it didn't make much sense. But now, standing in their house again, surrounded by judging eyes and fake smiles, those words suddenly meant everything. The lawyer stood at the front of the ballroom, holding a thick envelope with a red seal. Everyone grew quiet. Amora stayed still, her heart pounding so loud she was sure people could hear it. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading the will. "To my beloved niece, Victoria Whitmore, I leave my collection of rare wines." There were small claps and fake smiles. "To my cousin, Charles Whitmore, I leave the summer house in the Hamptons." More nods and whispers. Amora tried not to look nervous. She figured they brought her here by mistake or just to embarrass her. She didn't expect anything, not even a kind word. The room felt colder, the stares sharper. Then the lawyer paused. He looked right at Amora. Everyone else turned, too. "To Amora Brooks, daughter of Lillian Brooks," he said slowly, "I leave the rest of my estate." And just like that, the room exploded. For a second, nobody moved. Then the yelling started. "This is a joke!" Victoria shouted, her voice sharp and shaking. "She's a nobody." Charles stood up, his face red. "There's no way this is real." Amora's hands were shaking, but she stayed quiet. The lawyer reached into his folder and pulled out a small envelope. "Mr. Whitmore left this for you," he said, sliding it across the table to her. Amora picked it up with care. It was Reginald's handwriting. Inside was a note. "Amora," it read, "the first time I saw you reading Shakespeare in the library while everyone else was playing, I knew you were the only one who deserved my legacy." Amora blinked, trying not to cry. Around her, the family looked shocked, furious, helpless. But the lawyer wasn't finished. "Also," he added, "anyone who challenges the will lose everything they were promised." The silence returned heavier than before. That night, the mansion felt too big and too quiet. Amora stood alone in the library, surrounded by old books and portraits of people who never wanted her here. She stared up at the painting of Reginald Whitmore. "Why me?" she whispered. Her fingers brushed the shelves as she walked past them until one book felt different. She pulled it down and opened it. Inside was another letter, hidden between the pages. It was from Reginald. "They'll come for you, Amora," it read. "But don't forget you belong here." See, it felt like home. She'd fought for everything she had, and no one could take it from her. The people who had doubted her were now watching as she thrived, running the estate better than anyone ever had. Amora had turned White Oak from a symbol of old money into a beacon of hope and change. She had kept Reginald's legacy alive, but in her own way. As she read through a letter from him one last time, she smiled softly. He had trusted her. Now, she was leading the way, bringing light to the very place that once tried to keep her in the shadows. Amora had risen, and there was no turning back. The future was hers. As Amora stood in the grand hallway of White Oak, she couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened. She had gone from an outsider, looked down on by her own family, to the one who now held all the power. The mansion, once a place of fear and judgment, had become her home. The whispers and sneers that once filled the air had disappeared, replaced by respect. But it wasn't just about the power. It was about proving to herself that she could do it, that she was worthy. She had learned from the past, but she wasn't going to be held back by it. Reginald had seen something in her, and now, she was showing the world exactly what that was. She wasn't just carrying on his legacy, she was building her own. And this time, no one could take it from her.